When last we met, if you were here, we were in a dark room and we had some candles, and people prayed hard that the power wouldn't go out, and it did not, and we give thanks for that. And we held the light together, and we talked about that. I don't know if it's possible for us to believe like it's Christmas morning every day, but maybe that we might be able to believe like it's Christmas Eve every day. A group of people maybe gathered in whatever darkness we might be facing or whatever darkness has come around us, holding the light, holding it for each other, helping each other see and shine. And we do that in these bodies that we're given, these lives that we're given, these lives that we make together. And we carry that light into the world. And it's a beautiful thing if were here or if you've ever been to a candlelight service on Christmas Eve. It's an incredibly spiritual thing. There's this truth that everybody is spiritual on Christmas Eve. Even if you're a person who got drugged here. Now let me say, you're here January 1st, nobody drug you here today probably. You came of your own good conscience and all that good stuff, and we appreciate that. But Christmas Eve, there's all kinds of different people in this room. And even for skeptics and doubters and the places where we may be skeptics and doubters, in those moments, there's this truth that we're kind of all spiritual, or at least feeling a little spiritual. And then you flash it forward 8 days, and here on January 1st, we can all be a little religious, because January 1st is this idea of newness. It's this idea of grace that exists on a calendar page for everyone, skeptics, doubters, true believers, people that show up here on the first day of the year, whatever the case may be. January 1st is a new start, a fresh start, and there's something about that idea that everybody loves. And so with this fresh start, traditionally, as Sienna just shared, there's this sense of, how can I be something more in the new year? And sometimes it comes out as a resolution. How can I be something better? And this is a kind of human thing. Churchgoers do this, non-churchgoers do this, all that kind of stuff. And as you've heard, and as we probably know from experience, we come on days like today and we make these resolutions, and often not too long from now, we will be done with those resolutions. Now, let me show you. I'm sure you won't be surprised by this list, but we've got a list up on the screen. I know it may be hard to read. America's top New Year's resolutions for 2023. So at least among Americans, the top 5 resolutions are exercise more, eat healthier, lose weight, save more money, spend more time with friends and family. The next few are interesting to me. Spend less time on social media is 6. We'll talk some more about that in a few weeks. Reduce stress on the job, and then maybe kind of an inflation tinge. I want to resolve to reduce spending on living expenses. So 6, 7, 8 on that list are a little more unique, but if I was to ask you what were the top 5 New Year's resolutions last year, I bet you could guess, because you know what they were? Exercise more, eat healthier, lose weight, save money, spend more time with family and friends. Do you know what the top 5 New Year's resolutions were in 2021? In 2021, because of the pandemic, spend more time with family and friends moved up to number 3. I like it because it's as if we did that in 2022 and we were like, all right, now back to number 5 with that. Consistently, at least among Americans, every January 1st, exercise more, eat healthier, lose weight, save money, spend more time with family and friends. Those show up like clockwork, at least among Americans, and I would make some assumptions about the Western world entirely, every year. The fact that they show up every year means that we are not like crushing them, right? Because we come back to it, as she shared it, we read the same study. It's a 91% failure rate on New Year's resolutions, and many of them, after a week, we want to quit the gym. So there's this sense that every year we come back to these things, in part because we are not nailing them. So it's kind of a shared, again, skeptics, doubters, true believers, whatever the case may be, there's a bit of a shared human experience in this list. Because the truth too is, no one, we don't resolve to be worse people, right? It'd be weird if we did. We don't resolve on January 1st to say, I'm going to be so much more of a jerk in 2023. It's going to be great for me and not for everyone else. These are all like forward, we would use the word healthy to describe a lot of these things. And so we tend to view it as, again, skeptics, doubters, true believers, we view it as January 1st, here's an opportunity for me to improve myself. Even if we are done with resolutions, which I also find interesting. Millennials are the most confident generation in keeping their resolutions. That's because they're younger and they don't know any better, right? I love, I'm slightly too old to be I'm 41. I'm slightly too old to be a millennial and slightly too young to be Gen X, which is really convenient for me because I can just speak against both groups without identifying which one I'm in. Millennials are the most confident that they can keep their resolutions. Gen Z, that's the next group down, 25 and younger. Generation Z, when you ask them about New Year's resolutions, finding love shows up 4 times as often for those 25 and under. So again, there's just a lot of human being stuff in here. And even if you, whether you're a millennial or not, even if you've played this game for a long time and you've decided this year I'm not doing this, even in the words we might think of, if your word of the year is like sabotage or something like that, right? Like there's probably not a lot of that going around the room. There's a guy in our neighborhood that apparently makes his own fireworks, and I discovered that at about 12:01 last night, so the word sabotage jumped in my brain on the fly here. That's something for me and my therapist to talk about. So we don't resolve to be worse, but even if we don't have these lists, we're trying to be better and simultaneously carrying the understanding that we're not so great at being better by ourselves. And we keep coming back to the same kinds of things. And this can create a cycle that even on a day when we have the highest of aspirations, and those aspirations are to be healthier, the cycle that can create can become unhealthy. Because what we can tell ourselves is, this is my day, this is my chance, this is my opportunity. And when 91% of those things fall by the wayside, then we can thus tell ourselves that there must be something wrong with me. I'm failing again. If I can't do this, what kind of husband, wife, father, mother, person, employee am I? So on and so forth. Now, the good news about this, of course, is the good news. That's why we're here. And the New Testament has a really beautiful way of speaking into cycles of how can I make myself that which I should be, and our inability to live into or fulfill those cycles. You can find this all over the place in the New Testament. I want to show you just one place this morning. This is Hebrews 10. Hebrews 10 carries a lot of priest language about the old way of doing things and the new way of doing things. This is Hebrews 10. I want to start in verse 1. The writer of Hebrews says, "The law is only a shadow of the good things that are coming, not the realities themselves. For this reason, the law can never, by the same sacrifices repeated endlessly, year after year, make perfect those who draw near to worship. Otherwise, would they not have stopped being offered? The worshipers would have been cleansed once for all. They would have no longer felt guilty for their sins. But those sacrifices are an annual reminder of sins. It is impossible for the blood of bulls and goats to take away sins." So the old practice, human beings continually are aware that we need grace, that we don't get it exactly right, that we have things we can resolve to be and do better. And in the old system, you brought sacrifices to do that, sometimes as a result of needing forgiveness, sometimes just annually as a way of saying, look, I know I messed this up, and let's try again in 2023 or whatever the case may be. But the New Testament speaks of that system as only a shadow and not, in fact, the real thing itself. The law can't make you perfect with repeat sacrifices over and over and over and over again, buying into a system where we do it ourselves and try to make ourselves better and do all these things over and over. It can't do it. It was, in fact, never really meant to, because it was just a shadow of the real thing. Which raises the question, what is the real thing? If the old system of I go a certain way and then I mess it up and then I make a sacrifice and then I'm forgiven and then I can keep going until I do something else wrong and then I make a sacrifice and that takes me until I can make another sacrifice because I did something else wrong and so on and so forth, that doesn't work. So if that's not the real thing, what is the real thing? And what I heard someone say it, Jesus is always a good answer, right? It's church, probably Jesus. In particular about Jesus, I would submit to you that there's something about grace that in this case is not just like a theological concept for us to believe in, but on this day, when we're talking about how to make ourselves more or better or different, or whatever the case may be, grace is not just an idea to believe in. Grace is something really healthy to introduce into your life on an everyday basis, especially if we're dealing with a 91% failure rate. You're going to need some grace. Me too. If you made 20 resolutions, you're going to need some grace. If you made none and you think all this is nonsense, you're going to need some grace. So it's not just this thing to believe in. It's something to implement in our lives every day, because the truth is, when we're talking about what's the real thing, the real thing in part is that you and I, we need grace, always have from the beginning. Not by virtue of being bad people, by virtue of being people. We need grace. And the good news is, grace is here, man. Grace is not just a thing we believe in. Grace through Jesus Christ, through everything we just celebrated for the past month, a God who comes to be with us and comes to be in us. This grace is here if you want it. And I am much healthier when I seek to encounter that grace and allow it. I don't know if allow is the right word. I struggle with that all week, but I think it's allow it into my life on an everyday basis, to believe that there is something here, not just that forgives me when I mess it up 91% of the time, but helps carry me forward in a much healthier fashion that isn't dependent on my ability to white knuckle it yes or no. Let me show you how the writer in Hebrews goes on and talks about this. This is a few verses later in verse 11. Day after day, every priest stands and performs his religious duties. Again and again, he offers the same sacrifices which can never take away sins. But when this priest, that's Jesus, when this Jesus had offered for all time one sacrifice for sins, he sat down at the right hand of God. Since that time, he waits for his enemies to be made his footstool. Now, watch this. For by one sacrifice, Christ has made perfect forever those who are being made holy. I'm going to leave that up there for a second and think about that for a couple minutes. The writer says the old system is the priest is on his feet every day because there are sacrifices that have to continually be made, because there are people who do people stuff and need forgiveness continually. So continually, the priest is on his feet all day offering these sacrifices. I am very grateful to be a pastor in 2023 and not back then, when it's just a constant stream of dead animals. I would much rather talk to you fine people. Day after day, always on his feet, because it never stops. The cycle never stops because our need for grace persists. It is stubborn because we are. There's always this need for grace. And in the old way, it was just this constant cycle of trying to do it better and trying to do it better and sacrifice and sacrifice. And then Jesus comes and makes one sacrifice and sits down because, among many other things, it is finished. And then we're told that by that one sacrifice, he has made, what's the word? That was good Southern, whoever said that. Perfect. He has made perfect, not kind of good, not close enough, not better than last year. He has made perfect forever those who are being made holy. This verse has been sensationally helpful for me in my own life, because what it tells me is for the inner perfectionist that might live in me and in my brain, it helps me allow that person some grace too, because he has made perfect forever. Done. He has made perfect forever through Christ. So this idea becomes that I believe the only perfection that I will know and the only perfection that I will need comes through Jesus Christ. And that is done. Finished, done. Forever. So when it comes to our ability to be not just good enough, but perfect, that is already taken care of. And that is very good news on any day, but kind of especially on January 1st. As a reminder that this whole thing was never meant to be about our own ability to nail it and crush it. He has made perfect forever those who are being made holy. Now that part is still something that's going on. In Methodist world, we would call this sanctification. We would call it becoming more and more like Jesus. So he has made perfect forever, done. Those who are being made holy, that's the work we're called to. Please hear, and I say it to myself as well, to say, please hear that perfection is not what we're after in 2023 or any year. Holiness is what we're about. Now, holiness was not on the graphic of New Year's resolutions. Probably won't be next year either. Holiness is a fancy church word. It means set apart. It means to take a thing and say, I am using this for a special God purpose. So you can see with thinking like that, it's easy for us to think of objects or buildings or things like that as holy. This is holy. This space is holy. This chalice is holy. That cross is holy, that sort of stuff. But what's being talked about here is not an object. It's you and me, man. By one sacrifice, he has made perfect forever, not our buildings or our Bibles or our crosses or any of that stuff. He has made perfect forever those people are being made holy. That means our whole lives have this opportunity to be set apart for God. Not to chase perfection, because you've already got that. You got all that you need in Jesus. But to pursue a set apart, holy life that probably includes most, if not all, of those words that you thought of a few minutes ago. And sure, includes, I would imagine, spending more time with friends and family and being good stewards of the gifts we've been given, including our bodies and our finances and all of that stuff. When we talk about what is the reality here, I would also submit to you that it's always been this way. Do you know how many times the word perfect is used to describe the Garden of Eden? 0. The word perfect is never used, even in original creation, pre-tree, pre-fruit. The word perfect is never used, not once, to describe that place. Look, it's the oldest joke in the book. Do you know how I know it's not perfect? There's a snake in there, and it's like a devil snake that's trying to trick that woman and that man and is still trying to trick us today. The word perfect is not once, not ever used to describe that place. What that place is called is good. And you and me, when we're made, we are called very good. And we're going to need some grace because we're people. And the good news is, that's here, man. That grace is here. And he has made perfect by one sacrifice, sat down forever, those who are being made holy. And so I don't know how many resolutions you made or you didn't make or what they are or what your words are, but for as many or as few as they are, let grace in there. Give it to yourself. How about allow yourself to receive it? Because it has been given to you. It's here. You're going to need it. It's 10:14 a.m. on January 1st. Theoretically, you slept. So we've only been doing this for a few hours this year. And like you need it. I need it. And it's here. And by one sacrifice, he's made perfect forever those who are being made holy. And that's the work we want to be about. To be more fruitful, to be better, to be different, even if you think of it that way, to look more like Jesus. And we've got all the grace we need to help us do that too. And so this morning, we start our year off by celebrating that at this table. It's the same meal we shared 8 nights ago on December 24th when we were all feeling spiritual. It's the same meal we share today on January 1st when we're all feeling religious. And the truth about this grace is when you need it, it's going to be there. This grace doesn't just show up on January 1st. It'll be here tomorrow too. And the next day, and February 17th, and July 2nd, and Christmas Eve of this year, and all of the points between. When we encounter our own inability to live into that cycle ourselves again, grace is here again. And not just to help us pick ourselves up and try again, but to view ourselves as made perfect forever, who are being made holy.